Isshin Tasuke, a famous man of Edo. Nakamura Kinnosuke, Japanese period drama 1958. Isshin Tasuke is a film series starring Nakamura Kinnosuke produced by Toei. 5 films were made in the series between 1958 and 1963. As the title suggests, I think Isshin Tasuke is the most suitable role for Kinnosuke. Miyamoto Musashi and Katsuki Takajiro from the Matadabi film are also suitable. But I believe that Isshin Tasuke is the one who best expresses his straightforward personality, and it is such a humane and refreshing film that you cannot watch without crying. Let's get into the explanation. In 1624, the third shogun, Tokugawa Iemitsu, went to Ueno Kaniji Temple to report his appointment as shogun, accompanied by many samurai, spearmen, horsemen, etc. When the shogun passes outside, all the common people sit upright and bow their heads, and nothing should disturb the procession. But at that moment, a young girl accidentally rolled a ball into the procession. According to the rules at the time, the child was killed on the spot. The young man in charge, Harai Ayanakami, Kagakunio, immediately gave the order to kill the child. However, Isshin Tasuke Nakamura Kinnosuke, who had seen this, shouted loudly that the child had accidentally rolled the ball without knowing anything. He should not have taken his life, and he asked for the child's life to be spared. However, he was told not to get in the way, and that he was just as guilty. Tasuke had heard that the new shogun was a merciful person. He continued to resist, saying that such a foolish act could not happen in the shogun's procession. When he asked where the shogun was, Okubo Hikazeman, Tsukigata Ryunosuke admonished him, saying that he was a fool and a madman who should stay away. Shogun Iemitsu, played by Nakamura Kinnosuke in a double role, called from inside the cage, and Hikazeman, a madman who had seen the procession, said, "Leave this matter to the old man," to which Iemitsu replied, "I'll leave it to Hikazeman, and he'll do what he thinks best." This incident was not about the child, but about what to do with Tasuke, an adult who had declared that he wanted the shogunate to overlook the rules because he was a child. After returning to his own mansion, Hikazeman tied Tasuke with a rope and said he would kill him for disrupting the procession. Tasuke replied, "Thank you, I'd be happy if the Lord killed me for saving my child. I was happy that the Lord had saved my child, and I honestly felt that he was Okubo Hikazeman, unlike the shoguns and daimyo who treat human lives as nothing more than insects. However, if you are the world's most important person," Iemitsu said, "I want Tasuke to be the last person to treat a human life with disregard." These are words that are hard to find. This is very persuasive. Hikazeman is also very impressed. When Hikazeman asks if he has anything left to say, he replies that there is nothing left to say. He tells him to prepare himself and draws his sword. Hikazeman, who is in a high-level stance, says with a flourish and cuts only the rope. Tasuke looks confused, but he has been saved. As you all already know, Hikazeman must have seen Tasuke's actions and words after the incident as a man who would be a waste to take his life, a man with great potential, and decided to take care of him as his retainer. Iemitsu must have predicted this and left it to Hikazeman. This is because Iemitsu completely respects and trusts Hikazeman, who has served 3 generations of shogun since Ieyasu's time. He believed that Hikazeman would not make the wrong decision. This kind of human relationship is not built overnight. It takes a long time to build, and it is not something that anyone can do. The chief advisor, Matsudara Izonakami Yamagata Isao, came to the castle. The reason for this was to convey to Izonakami who had many opportunities to speak directly with the shogun. His opinion that the way Hikoza was treated in relation to this incident was disrespectful of the young elders, such as Hara. Their opinion was that if Hikoza was allowed to do as he pleased, the number of Hatamoto would increase, leading to conflicts with the various daimyo. When Izunakami remarked that the old man was a nuisance, Hikoza, who had been listening in the hallway, immediately asked what the wise man was troubling him about. Hikoza, despite his age, began to ramble on about how he had fought to protect the shogun since his youth, such as at his first battle at the age of 16, the decisive battle of Nagashino. But Izunakami stopped him, saying no. He politely replied that he had heard a lot about the old man's events, his first battle, and the subsequent battles. Izunakami gave a proper opinion, saying that everyone had their own duties and that he asked them to give instructions. Hikazaburo replied, "It was the incident at the Kanariji pilgrimage. If it was stained with blood at that time, then the responsibility lies with each person's negligence in guarding. How much would the Tokugawa name gain by cutting off one child? It will never bring honor to his lordship, and that young people tend to be too caught up in rules, duties, and form. If you become too caught up in form, you will end up neglecting your duties," he said, before leaving. Hikazaburo's opinion was the most reasonable, and was so persuasive that no one could disagree. It was an opinion that I could completely agree with. It was a moment that showed Tsukigata Ryunosuke's dignity. Hikazaburo went to pay his customary visit to Iemitsu. In response to Iemitsu's encouragement to take care of himself and not catch an old man's cold, Iemitsu replied, "Are you telling me that? No, I won't invite you to that." This is Hikoza's first battle at the age of 16. He begins his usual catchphrase, and Iemitsu remembers what happens next and finishes the sentence. Then, during the visit to Kanariji Temple, Iemitsu praises Hikoza for the way he dealt with the madman. This information has already reached Shogun Iemitsu, and he knows that he handled it in the best way possible. This conversation is possible because Iemitsu trusts Hikoza, and Hikoza respects and trusts Iemitsu. On a rainy day when Hikoza comes back from climbing the castle, Tasuke works hard without cutting corners and everything, wiping and cleaning Hikoza's house and tending to the garden, and this only increases Hikoza's trust in him. Today, the two of them are fishing at the pond. Tasuke tells Hikoza that he's bad at fishing, as if he were a friend. Hikoza seems to forgive him wholeheartedly, and even though they are far apart in age, they seem to be best friends. Tasuke begins to tell Hikoza what he thinks about on a daily basis, as follows. "My boss is the #1 Hatamoto in Japan, recognized by the shogun, and I, his subordinate, have been thinking about becoming the #1 man in Japan for the past 2 years. I want to become a man who can help others." When I said that, Hikoza seemed to have been waiting for me to say it and praised him, saying, "I see, you've done well, as expected from someone I've taken an interest in, and since you were born a man, you should have that kind of spirit." I'm sure Hikoza thought it was worth it to help me when I visited Kanariji Temple. He encouraged me, saying that even those who are spear bearers or sandal carriers could definitely become men. Hikoza said that becoming a man meant giving up one's life for the people of the world, and that I live with the idea of giving up my life, always thinking about what is good for the world and for people. Look at this pond. Humans are one heart. There is nothing purer than the heart. It's like a mirror, just like this pond. He teaches me. I will take on anything with my life on the line, with one heart like a mirror. Tasuke has received a great lesson, and looks as if he is seriously trying to take it to heart as his Zeu name. Words or phrases that are always kept in mind and used as a reference or admonition for how to live. I believe that people who have the heart to treasure the moving words that others say to them like this will grow. Just as Kinnosuke's serious expression laid the foundation for his later career as a great movie actor. The women working at Hikazuburo's mansion seemed to be teasing Onaka Nakahara Hitomi by telling her to sing a song about her country. She has a strong accent because she was raised in the Tohoku region, so they are saying it to her to make fun of her. The center of it all is Oshima, Akaji Haru. Seeing Onaka's reluctance, Tasuke advises her not to harass him anymore. Oshima teases, saying that the helper has a partner because Onaka is young and pretty. Tasuke quickly runs away, but Onaka just stands there blankly. That night, while Hikosa and the other bannermen are engrossed in the traditional game of picking up anything inedible from a sickle with their chopsticks and eating it, the maids are all gathered together in silence. When Tasuke finds this and asks what happened, she learns that Onaka has broken a plate, a family heirloom given to Hikosa by Ieyasu. As Tasuke knows, anyone who loses or breaks a family heirloom is punishable by beheading. Tasuke says, "I'm not the kind of lord who would be beheaded for breaking a plate, no matter how important the heirloom, so leave it to me." Onaka and approaches Hikosa with the broken plate and 9 other unbroken plates. When Tasuke tells Hikosa that he broke it, protecting Onaka, Hikosa says that he has been protecting Tasuke, but he has become arrogant and says that he can't take Tasuke anymore. Onaka rushes in and says that it was not Tasuke, but I broke it. Tasuke says that it is natural that I should die first, since I was born 2 or 3 years before Onaka, and says that the Lord taught me that dying for others is the best thing, and that he has a request for his last days in this world, that there is something I would like to do for others, and Hikosa says that he should try anything. With permission given immediately, Tasuke broke all 9 plates that were family heirlooms that he had brought with him along with the broken plate. I was moved to tears by Tasuke's spirit of wanting to protect Onaka, wanting to protect people who will be born again and experience the same thing as Onaka, and wanting Hikosa to change his mind before he died and broke all the plates. Even though it was just a movie, I was moved by the wisdom of the scriptwriter and director who created the story, and it was played by Nakamura Kinnosuke, the treasure of period dramas, so it couldn't get any more luxurious than that. So what will Hikosa do? Hikosa is furious and thinks Tasuke is crazy, but he replies, "I'm not crazy, my lord. Every time you tear this, 9 lives will be lost. If I put it away like this, I'll only have to deal with 1 person." This scene made me happy and moved, and I started crying again. It's an amazing scene. The meaning behind the title of the movie, that this is the role that is most suitable for Kinnosuke, is the scene. The surrounding samurai all surround Tasuke, but Tasuke says that he is going to sacrifice his life and strips his shirt naked. Hikosa has a tattoo with the words life on the upper right and 1 heart like a mirror on his left arm, and Hikosa looks at it closely. With this, Tasuke has been able to do something for someone else. He thanks Hikosa. Hikosa tells Tasuke to get over it without any regrets, and Hikazeman says, "Wow, that's great," moved by Tasuke's boundless conviction. Hikazeman has learned something from this scene. Tasuke was so kind as to give his opinion to Hikazeman. Anyway, even just from the scene from when he breaks the plate to when Hikazeman is moved, we can learn about the presence of Tasuke's single-mindedness in this film, the value of Nakamura Kinnosuke as an actor, and Tsukigata Ryunosuke's generosity and godlike heart. Kinnosuke is so happy that he calls Hikoza Lord, and hugs him. Tsukigata Ryunosuke is so moved that he can't speak. It's an extremely convincing scene. The next day, while the maids are arranging flowers, Onaka is sitting at days. The maids have long known about Tasuke's great feat from the night before, and they all have feelings for Tasuke. When he returns to the living room where Tasuke is, he is overwhelmed by the love letters he receives from the many maids. But Onaka's feelings for Tasuke grow stronger after that, and she begs him to be with her. Then again, they go to the pond. The two are fishing, but Tasuke says that not only are women scary, but he also finds the life of a samurai too strict, and that staying inside a mansion isn't enough for him. He wants to become a fishmonger who can help people who try, even if he is poor. Hikoza gives his stamp of approval, saying that he is a great man and will help him as his guardian any time. Once again, Hikoza knows a man's heart well. Tasuke immediately goes to his landlord, General Isuji Kaiichi, to live in the tenement house, and is told that he needs a guarantor. Tasuke offers to do so if Okubo Hikazeman is willing, but is vehemently refused, saying that he cannot be with someone who is crazy. Tasuke goes to Hikoza's house saying that this is a major event for the nation, and Hikoza immediately goes to Genbani's house on horseback. Naturally, Genbani is shocked to the point of fainting and agrees. Tsuji Kaiichi, who looks like the main character in this manga, has a really funny face. Tasuke comes to the fish market at Edo Nihonbashi Riverside for the first time, carrying a scale to hold fish, but he buys fish from the market after bumping into each other in an aisle, just wide enough for people to pass through. However, Daihachi, Ito Ryohei and his associates come to fight Tasuke, asking him who he asked before he could do business here. Tasuke then says, "Who decided that I couldn't do business without your face," and does not give in. When Daihachi starts punching, a fight breaks out between one man and dozens of men. In the end, Tasuke fights using a stick to carry the fish, but there is no way he can win against the many. In the end, he lies down on his back in the middle of their circle and shouts, "Kill me. When I die, take me to Hikazeman's lord." Just then, Hikazeman and the officials arrived to stop the fight after receiving the news. Riding on horseback on Nihonbashi Bridge, Hikazeman says that Okubo Hikazeman, the great man of the nation, has come to take him down. Please be humble. Everyone bows down to him. The townspeople of Edo know very well how important Hikazeman is, so they put up no resistance. How can a group of people gang up on one person and bully him? What is this? They have caused trouble in their own town, so he says it is outrageous and he will have them jailed. Hikazeman asks who is the caretaker of the fish market, and Izumaya Kangoro Takamatsu Kinnosuke comes out and listens, bowing to him. Who do you think owes it to for the fish market to exist today? It is a mercy from his lordship. If things continue like this, the fish market will be destroyed, he threatens. Will all the newcomers be bullied without Hikoza's backing? The caretakers reply that they will keep their promise from now on, so please keep things peaceful. After hearing the caretaker's response, Hikoza says that since Ieyasu, both parties in a fight are to blame. Normally, he would have called in the magistrate and had each of them imprisoned, but he spared the caretaker and said that he would let them off just this once, a decision that pleased everyone. From now on, they will not be able to fight like this again. Hikoza has a final laugh, then says, "You should complain and buy sake." That's Tasuke, and hands over the money. This is a response that is typical of Hikoza and very stylish. They praise the boss, saying that he is just like a boss and that even though he is old, he still treats them well. Everyone at the fish market must have felt the same way. On the other hand, the young men and Izu no Kami do not seem to like what has happened this time either, and see, it is nothing more than a breach of discipline. This is the castle garden. Hikoza is reporting to the Lord that he has taken off his clothes to clean up the fight at the fish market. As always, the Lord is listening to Hikoza with a smile. He is pleased, saying that this guy called Tasuke is truly worthy of being an old man's subordinate. These two men have very similar ways of thinking. The Lord is a samurai who has supported Hikoza since Ieyasu, so he is probably a little reserved, but he shares the same basic political idea of valuing humanity. Hikoza is in high spirits, saying that Tasuke, who has been reborn thanks to the Lord's mercy, will soon be the best fishmonger in Edo, if not in Japan. What an incredible retainer he has. This is because no one can imitate Tasuke's thoughts and actions. He lives his life with integrity. As you might imagine, the members of the fish market first praised Okubo Hikazeman for his good spirit, and their attitude towards Tasuke changed completely. In particular, his opponent Kinnosuke, Hoshihiro, is in a good mood, saying that you are a good man, have good courage, and most of all, his tattoos that say one mind like a mirror in life are great. Everyone calls you Isshin Tasuke. Daihachi, who led the fight, also says that he has woken up thanks to his lord and is very grateful, saying, "Take this," and gives Tasuke a big sea bream for free. Suke says he will take it to his boss, making Daihachi happy as well. And it is not just Daihachi. All of Tasuke's opponents were spared by the punishment of both parties in the fight. So many fishmongers give fish to Tasuke for free. The fishmonger that Tasuke chose is off to a good start. But this is due to Tasuke's personality. The members of the fish market also want to live like Tasuke. Tasuke takes the sea bream he received from Daihachi to the Lord. Not only Hikoza, but middle Kinnosuke Kaishanji is also happy that it's cheap. However, Onaka is always sad because her feelings have not yet been conveyed to Tasuke, but soon Hikoza will come out in public. On his first day selling fish, Tasuke helped a pickpocket, Tsukude Agobai, Mizuno Hiroshi, and got into a fight with the person who had stolen his money. And he also got scolded for breaking up a couple's quarrel. But on the other hand, he also met a young man, Inabakozo Kadaoka Ijiro, who beat up a man who had stolen money from an elderly person and returned it to the old man. The number of people he met was different from when he was at Hikoza's house. There was a lot to learn. When he returned to the tenement house, the ladies were washing dishes at the well. He said he had some fishes left over, so he would give them to the wives, who were happy to accept them. The owner of the tenement house also got 2 fish for free. He heard from Genbei that Tasuke couldn't leave him in the corner either, because there was someone waiting for him. That person was Onaka. She tried her best not to go home until she heard Tasuke's real feelings. But he didn't like how persistent he was, and he didn't like her accent. At Hikoza's house, Kine is teaching her standard Japanese, but she is not improving right away. Hikoza, who happens to be passing by, encourages her by saying that she will do her best because she will pass through Big Stone with all her heart, and Hikoza smiles, saying that Tasuke is a very lucky man. Tasuke goes to the fish market to buy fish, but is unable to catch any because of a storm, a rough sea caused by a series of storms, and is troubled by the fact that he is unable to get fresh fish and that the fish is on the verge of rotting. Seeing this, Tasuke seems to have an idea. and all the fishmongers go to Hikosa's house, and Hikosa's family is running out of money and is in trouble. They ask Hikosa to write a letter asking if Hatamoto Samurai could buy the fish, even if they are not fresh, for 1 ryo per fish. And the fishmonger takes the money and goes to discuss how they can give the remaining money to people in need. Hikosa thinks it is a good idea and writes a letter to the Hatamoto Samurai. It is a good idea, but will they buy fish that are on the verge of rotting? When they go to sell them, someone buys them, and the fishmonger takes the money and gives the remaining money to people in need. Everyone was overjoyed. When Izunakami heard this, he reported it to his lord. The lord seemed composed, typical of an old man, but I thought Izunakami had come to report the complaint that the Hatamoto had once again been forced to buy rotten fish. But instead he had come to report that the old man had taught him that while it is important to give money to the poor, it is even more important to eradicate poverty. Iemitsu commented as a leader that the difficulties of government lie beyond small acts of chivalry. Izu. What he meant by this is that the truth and difficulty of politics lies in how to put small good deeds to use in politics. Iemitsu is a wonderful leader who can see things from a macroscopic perspective. When the snow started to fall, Tasuke was walking as usual under the snowy sky, shouldering his shoulder pole, when he saw the old woman bending over, looking tired. Tasuke kindly removes the towel he is wearing and places it on the old woman. As Tasuke carries her on his back, he tells the old woman that there is a great person he would like to carry, but that the person is so great that he cannot carry. Tasuke is talking about Hikosa, who has been taking care of him for so long and who Hikosa is more grateful to than his parents. Hikosa is more than happy to have a servant who never forgets to repay his debt, but what worries Tasuke is that Hikosa is getting older. Tasuke is not only elegant, but he is also a person who cares for others from the bottom of his heart, and it is rare to meet someone with such a kind heart. Tasuke went to the fish market early in the morning and there was no one there. It was a day off. When he returned to the tenement house, Tasuke found Onaka was sitting upright in his room and waiting for him. Tasuke was surprised that Onaka had come, but he was also surprised that Onaka's speech had become more refined. She said that it had been cured thanks to everyone at the mansion, and once again conveyed her feelings that her speech had become more refined, with the sole desire to become Tasuke's wife. She then tells Hikazeman that she came out because she was encouraged by the lord of the mansion and everyone else, and that she is prepared to do something different than before. Tasuke goes argue with Hikazeman, but Hikazeman tries to stab Tasuke with spear, asking if Tasuke understands how Hikosa wants to share his belly with his favorite servant. He says that he will even let him have her if he stabs him with a spear, and Tasuke finally confesses that he will take her. This is what they call a forced marriage, but I felt that Tasuke would definitely be happy. It's a great movie. Hikazeman rides his horse and Tasuke runs to the tenement house. Tasuke tells Onaka to wait for him at the mansion for another 3 years, and that he will definitely come for Onaka when he has become a better man than he is now. Onaka must have been so happy that she was so excited that he started speaking in her native language. As Tasuke was walking to do some business, Kinnosuke came running up to him, saying that this was the biggest event in the world. The story goes that a Hatamoto and a daimyo were riding in palanquins and collided, leading to a big fight. Hikosa, the representative of the Hatamoto, gathered the Hatamoto samurai together and had a long discussion about what to do. As the shogunate's ruling forbade to the castle and palanquins or on horseback, Then Tasuke came to him and said, I have a great idea, leave it to me. He decided to calm the castle in a basin. Once again, Izunakami conveyed the opposition of the young men to Hikoza, but Hikoza rejected it, saying that it was only prohibited to climb the castle in horses and palanquins, and there was no sign saying that basins were not allowed. Izunakami resisted, saying that climbing the castle in a basin, which had never been done before, was an act of showing no respect for superiors. But Hikoza said that since Ieyasu, the shogunate, had decided that both parties in a fight should be punished, but the elders were considerate of the outside daimyo and made a ruling that showed favoritism. Anyone could see that this was a one-sided decision, and that this was a case of showing no respect for superiors. Quotation mark. Izu no Kami is no good. Hikoza goes before the Lord to tell him what he has to say. So how will the Lord decide? The Lord says, I have not forgotten the spirit of the battlefield, and I do not look down on the Hatamoto who serve in politics. But what will happen to the country if the daimyo start causing trouble? This means that the shogunate will be split in two. The Tokugawa clan has now reached 3 generations, and I am trying to create a happy country where all the people of the country are united. This is not the time to complain about small daimyo or hatamoto. Do you understand, old man? He tells the hatamoto what is absolutely true. Hikoza remains alone in the room and continues to think. This is how Hikoza feels, having been pointed out for his small-mindedness in prioritizing opinions that are favorable to the organization he belongs to, and how he feels that he no longer has a place in it. I felt that the Lord's opinion was sound in this case. This is what they call a faction. People who create factions are narrow-minded. Just stick to your own ideas alone. Tasuke, as usual, went to the fish market early in the morning, shouldering his pole, but as he left the front door and tried to carry it, the rope between the basin and pole snapped. Tasuke assumed that something had happened to his boss, and many of Tasuke's colleagues encouraged him at the fish market, as he was feeling depressed. After buying a happy sea bream, Tasuke went to Hikazeman's house, but Hikazeman was sitting on a rock in the garden, hunched over, looking completely devoid of his usual energy. He must have been thinking that his time in life was over, that it was time for him to retire. When Tasuke asked him why he was feeling depressed, he said that it was something that you guys wouldn't understand, but I thought that Tasuke would understand very well. Tasuke said that it was because he was getting old, and began to massage his shoulders. Hikazeman then asked him what he would do if Hikoza died. Tasuke told him not to joke, but it was true that he was getting old. Hikazeman said that he was worried about Tasuke, as he relied on him more than anyone else. In response, Tasuke replies, Your heart is like a mirror, and you have taught me that there is nothing to fear if you give your life to it. That's right. And Hikoza tells him again to become a man. The Lord's words seem to have really hurt him, saying that he is getting old and that he is no longer fit for the castle. Hikoza begins to talk about the characteristics of the 3 generations of lords, and how when Lord Iemitsu was a child Hikoza loved him like a jewel. Now that he is fully grown, he expresses his current feelings, saying that he is overjoyed that there is no longer any role for him. However, if they are too perfect, there is no room for Hikoza, and this is also lonely. Tasuke understands these words well, and they must have made him feel a strong sense of anxiety that he may lose his energy if he continues like this. However, Tasuke has a great respect for Hikoza's way of life, so he scolds him, saying that the people in the castle don't understand the value of a lord's existence, and that Iemitsu is a hopeless guy. Hikoza responds that it is outrageous to mock the Lord and regains his composure, but Tasuke says, "You have to come." I'm worried and remains concerned about Hikoza. Tasuke's caring attitude remains unchanged. This scene is almost ear-jerking. Tasuke announces that he has brought some sea bream and runs to the kitchen to make sashimi. As Hikoza sees them off, he must be all the more impressed with Tasuke's character. Again, you rarely see people like this. Iemitsu is alone at the castle, wondering if his old man is still sulking, and Iemitsu's generous, forward-thinking attitude, saying that creating a world of peace is not the time to be fussy about small things like Hatamoto or daimyo, seems to be something he will never forget. Once again, Hikoza reports to the Ieyasu wallpaper that the shogun has become a fine general. Yes, it is time for Hikoza to be generous and congratulate his young lord on becoming independent. However, while Tasuke was angrily slicing the sea bream with the men in the castle, Kinne heard the report that the lord had collapsed, and the news spread to the fish market, Tasuke's tenement house, and throughout the town. Tasuke put his hands under the futon where Hikozeman was lying to warm him up. Hikozeman told him that tomorrow was falconry day, so he should ride Hatsuke's, the horse's name, and catch a good prey. Even in his sickbed, he never forgot about the shogun. He had looked after Iemitsu since the lord was a child, so he couldn't help but love Iemitsu more than anyone else. Tasuke's eyes were filled with tears, and he still looked at the men in the castle. Today is falconry day. The shogun, Izuno Kami, and others are with him. However, Tasuke kneels down before the falconry group and begs them, saying that Hikozeman has fallen ill and that Lord would please come and visit him just once. Izunakami immediately orders them to be killed. Tasuke says he has already given up his life, strips naked and kneels. Iemitsu thinks about it for a while, but then says he is mad and leaves him alone, and hurries off to hunt. Tasuke thinks they will not understand and mocks the lords, crying bitterly. I expected the lord to visit him after this, but what will happen? I thought Iemitsu would. This is inside the castle after returning from the hunt. Iemitsu is giving his opinion to Izunakami. Why didn't you say I would visit him from the hunting grounds at that time? I wanted to hear those words from you. This is so wonderful that the tears flow naturally. It is not about rules, it is about people. Izu, I wanted people's sympathy in your government. That is exactly right. Looking at Iemitsu's words and actions in this movie so far, they are exactly what he said to Izuno Kami. So I imagined that the lord would stop hunting and go to visit him. This is nothing less than a wise ruler. The fish market workers, the residents of the tenement houses, and the townspeople sneak through the gate of Hikoza's mansion to visit him. The aim of the samurai who run the government is the happiness of all the people. The people who feel happiness are the common people who are not involved in politics. However, in this scene, I can only think that the common people are acting for the sake of all the people. As Iemitsu says, compassionate government is the most important. Compassion means a heart that visits those who are in trouble or are weak. Hikoza tells Kinne that we should stop keeping Onaka in the mansion, with his wife and Tasuke at the table. What a kind Tsukegata Ryunosuke. At that moment, a samurai from the mansion runs in and tells Hikoza that the shogun is coming this way. Hikoza happily puts on 2 layers of kimono and sits down. Everyone who helped and passed through the gate sprints to the bottom of the steps in front of the gate, sitting upright and waiting for the shogun to arrive. Tasuke's mouth is wide open and he looks as if he couldn't be happier that the shogun has really come and that he understands what Tasuke has said. The moment Tasuke kneels and bows his head, the end of the movie appears. What a movie! It was a movie that left me with only a refreshing feeling, and tears were flowing at many points. There is nothing more beautiful in this world than the compassion between people. The true essence of director Ashimata Dashi, who has brought this to the screen on a grand scale, was on full display throughout. Toei is the best in period dramas, after all. Nakamura, Kinnosuke, and Tsukigata Ryunosuke are the jewels of period dramas.